Those very first words of the gospel today, fear no one, are ones that hopefully resonate within our minds and our hearts, that we are called not to live a life of fear, but rather of a life of trust. And that virtue of trusting in God is the virtue that we are invited to reflect upon this day. That God has that wonderful love for us, and we are called to trust in His providence and in His care, even in the midst of the challenges of our lives. I'm reminded of one of my priest mentors, Father Jerry O'Shea. Father Jerry was a very down-to-earth person, and his main ministry as a priest of our diocese was to work with the mentally ill at the Topeka State Hospital and with the prisoners at Kansas Reception Diagnostic Center. So he dealt with kind of extreme situations of people in their personal and spiritual need. But I remember one time he said to me, he said, "Tom, people think that the two motivating powers within our life are love and hate. But," he said, "from my experience, it's not love and hate. It's love and fear. Those are the two primary motivating things within people's lives. That we have a lot of power to love, which involves trust, but we also have that struggle with fear. Because fear can be an overwhelming thing for us. In fact, we know that anxiety is more and more alive within our culture today. People are anxious about many things, internationally, nationally, personally, within relationships, and within just our own bodies and hearts. There's so much anxiety, and anxiety really comes from fear. It comes from not being able to control, and that lack of control causes us to worry and to be anxious. And Jesus, in the midst of that, comes and says, "Do not be afraid." 365 times in the Bible, in one way or another, it says, "Do not be afraid." One for each day. Just a reminder for us that yes, fear can always be there. It can permeate our lives. But Jesus invites us to replace that fear with a trust in God's providence and in God's care. And he says, "Fear no one who can hurt the body." We have a lot of fears about our body. I know that personally from my own cancer experience. How much fear there can be about what can destroy the body. But Jesus says, don't worry so much about who can destroy the body. Worry about the one that can destroy your soul, who can really take that which is most precious and important to you. That's the one to fear. The power of sin, the power of evil, the power of the devil. And so we are challenged to address the anxieties of our life with a deeper sense of trust. And I know we struggle sometimes with the will of God. I struggle with the will of God, not knowing exactly what is the will of God, except I know that the will of God is for the happiness of each and every one of us. And that happiness that can only be experienced through that power of love. That happiness that will only fully be experienced in eternal life. When we talk about the will of God, it's important to distinguish between the positive will of God and the permissive will of God. The positive will of God is what God really wants in this world. And He wants our happiness. He wants our love. He wants our eternal salvation. And that's the positive will of God. The permissive will of God is those things that God may allow within our life because of a greater good. The permissive will of God allows sin, allows injury, allows pain, allows suffering, allows illness, allows death. But those things are permitted in light of a greater good, the greater power of God's providence that somehow guarantees that evil will not have the final say, but rather life will, love will, if we are but open to that power of God. So Jesus invites us to trust in him. Fear no one except the one who can send you to hell. Fear the devil. But replace that fear with love, because love conquers all. Love brings happiness. Love brings eternal life.